topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Churchill said, "Those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it." Kevin Hallinan believes that certainly applies to business. Welcome to Winning Business Radio, here at W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. And now, your host, Kevin Hallinan.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in today. I am Kevin Hallinan, and welcome back to Winning Business TV and Radio on W4CY.com. We're streaming live on Talk4TV.com, in addition to Facebook, and that's at Winning Business Radio. And, of course, we're available in podcast after the live show on many platforms, all the ones you know, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple. Again, wherever you find your favorite podcasts, we are there. The mission of this show, Winning Business Radio and TV, as regular viewers and listeners know, is to offer insights and advice, really to help people avoid the mistakes of others, to learn best practices. Those are the how-tos, the what-tos, the what-not-tos, to be challenged and hopefully to be inspired by the successes of others, those consultants, coaches, advisors. Today's an author, founders and owners, entrepreneurs. He's also an entrepreneur, people with expertise. But, you know, virtually every successful person I've ever had a chance to talk to has had some form of failure in their lives and careers. So while we all have to get our knees skinned once in a while, I'm driven to keep those scrapes from needing major surgery. Let's endeavor to learn from history so we don't repeat it. I've spent the better part of my career equipping businesses to grow, and that's from solopreneurs to small and medium-sized companies all the way up to the Fortune 50. I've seen some of those companies win, and to varying degrees, I've seen some fail. I've had the opportunity to rub elbows with some of the highest performing people around and with some who probably should have found other professions. In my own businesses, I've had lots of success, but some failures too. So I like to think I've learned a lot from those experiences. And of course, you're going to hear from me, my opinions and insights. But anybody who knows, anyone who knows me will tell you I've sometimes a hard time staying quiet, Frank. But more importantly, together we'll hear from experts, those consultants, coaches, authors, advisors, founders, owners, entrepreneurs. And today, my guest is Frank Lobb, retired U.S. Navy pilot and author of, ready, The Big Lie in My Healthcare Bill. I was intrigued, but then not happy when I read this. And so you'll get the same response, I think. Frank Lobb is a retired U.S. Navy pilot with a long and distinguished career outside the Navy, including roles as general manager for DuPont Process Instruments and then for DuPont's environmental services business. After retiring from DuPont, Frank served as a principal consultant at Monsanto and then Clean Air Engineering on regulatory law and compliance. It was this extensive background in the law and compliance that allowed him to be credited with forcing the EPA to scrap 3 years of work on the Clean Air Act. I want to hear about that, and rewrite the compliance section of the act around his recommendations. And it was this same background and expertise that allowed Frank to access and dissect the carefully hidden contractual provisions that the healthcare industry uses to deny care and coverage patients are owed from their health insurance. Now 86, Frank lives on a 2-acre working farm with Angie, his English wife, in Chester County, Pennsylvania, along with Angie's 17 ducks and their 2 English Springer Spaniels. From there, together with their son and son-in-law, they own and operate the leading hardware and supply business in the region. And in keeping with his age and longstanding promise to Angie, Frank has promised this will be his very last book on healthcare because he's finally found the solution to the fraud and misrepresentation in the nation's health insurance that he has sought for so long. Frank, welcome to Winning Business Radio.
Oh, thank you very much. I really got a kick out of the introduction.
Well, it's a good one. I mean, it's long, but there's a lot in there, and I didn't want to water it down too much. I want people to understand who you are and how you came to this place.
Let me add something. I did force EPA to write the compliance
Clean
Air Act, but I didn't take away the environmental piece. I simply made EPA comply with the law as Congress had written it.
Well, that still doesn't sound like an easy task.
It's different. In other words, I wasn't arguing what was right or wrong,
Right.
other than you can't do something other than Congress
Yeah.
dictated in the law. And it's pretty much the same thing I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part of the law, or at least in this case, it's contract law, that you can't see. And it took me 3 years with the knowledge that I have to get access to these contracts. And I've honestly never bumped into anybody except somebody maybe within the industry that's ever read them. And
Well, that's unbelievable. Let me back you up a little bit, though. Tell us about the business, a little bit about the hardware, Cameron's, right?
Well, we have about 50 employees, and we're a hardware supply business. We're the largest, actually, firearms supplier in the southeast corner of Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
We have a long hunting tradition. We've got a 200-acre farm that backs into 2,000 acres of woods and fields,
Wow.
and that's the way we like to live. We live in the bigger world, but this healthcare thing is simply. I had a situation years ago where they denied care for somebody in the family. And
this was your first wife, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And she died. And I had offered to pay for it. I said, when Blue Cross refused to pay, I said I'd pay. And I was told I couldn't. They wouldn't allow me to pay.
All right, stop right there. How does that work? I mean, that doesn't even make sense.
Well, it does. Let's get into this.
Sure. Yeah, go ahead. We'll jump in.
Way back, 35 years ago, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously that healthcare insurance companies could induce rationing. In other words, induce, because they can't force it. An insurance company has no legal right to determine what is appropriate healthcare.
That's up to the docs, right?
End of statement. Period. Okay. Only your doctor can do that, and only the doctor in attendance, not the guy down the block. Only the guy that's holding your hand.
So it's not a doctor at the insurance company. It's not a doctor administrator.
The right word there legally is no standing. I don't care what he says. He can do what he wants. But the thing is that the insurance companies have had the power to decide what they're going to cover. And if you look at their contracts, they give themselves the power to deny coverage anytime they want. But that's not.
I think we've all experienced that, but go ahead. Yeah.
But that's not enough for them. And that's what I ran into. They don't just deny coverage for you, they deny all payment for anybody that's in network. So anybody that's got a contract with the insurance industry, when they deny coverage, they bar everybody within the in-network community from accepting any money for care for you.
So that practically speaking, that ceases care for that particular ailment or situation.
And if you think about, if you look at healthcare, 50% of the family bankruptcies in the country are for a healthcare bill. Well, that's not for a bill for a doctor bill where you went and spend $30 or $100 to go see your doctor. That's for a hospital bill.
That's for cancer. That's for major accidents, right?
Yeah, that's where a hospital bill 3 days can cost you $100,000. And so how many hospitals you think are going to give you care when they know they're not allowed to bill for it? And it could cost thousands.
All right, but they do bill.
Well, what they do is they find a way to say no. And they make it sound like the whole issue is the insurance. No, because the rules that they have, matter of fact, I have a podcast I just wrote for Substack. And what I said was Einstein said years ago that you have to know the rules of the game and then play it better than anybody else. And anything we know about health insurance is deliberately false. It's not insurance. It's not yours. The bill is not yours. The contracts say they can only bill the provider, the in-network provider. Okay. And we are assured of getting all the care that our doctor says we need, regardless of reimbursement. Now tell me where you find that in any discussion with your doctor, the hospital, or anybody within the American healthcare system.
All right. So I'm a patient. I'm a regular person like you or anybody else. I have a series of doctors because I'm older. I don't have one pediatrician or, one GP because I'm young and healthy. Stuff happens when you get older. So we have a series of doctors. We go there. They treat us, then we get a bill.
Well,
In other words, that's our perspective as patients, right?
I'm in the hardware business. I'm sitting in the office.
Yeah.
And we could send bills to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean they're due or they should pay us.
But
So
we pay them because we don't know otherwise.
because we don't know any better.
Mm.
And if I could do that in the hardware business, I'd be a millionaire overnight. Okay. What do? They tell you that you have insurance. It's an insurance product. No, it's not. Under law, it is not insurance. Insurance, there has to be a contract between you and the insurer, and there is no such thing. They make you think it's yours. And when you go into any hospital, there's that little piece of paper or on the wall. You take responsibility for whatever you're
insured. You got to sign the little electronic signature every time I go. Sign the little electronic signature pad.
Well, you can't sell something when you surrender the right to bill for it. A long time ago, when they signed these contracts, they surrendered the right to bill you so long as it's medically necessary care. Mm-hmm. And any care you get from your doctor is medically necessary by definition because he's not allowed to give you anything else.
All right. What about the instances where a doctor says it's medically necessary, but the insurance company says we don't agree?
Well, I can say it's not medically necessary. What basis in law do I have to say that? The insurance company is simply using its hidden authority to deny coverage anytime they want and not telling you that you can't be billed for it, but you're still owed it. Okay.
So take us back, if you don't mind. Give me a little bit more of the specifics around your wife's situation. I mean, you got hammered with bills. I mean, how did you start to figure this out?
Well, I had a lot of experience in reading contracts and so forth. I came out of the Navy and I went to work for DuPont and I became a general manager and then process instruments and a few other things. And I was supposedly very good at writing contracts. And then I got off onto the environmental side because DuPont was very deeply involved in defining the entire environmental, at least air compliance. And then I got into determining regulatory compliance. And I toured the country with EPA, helping people understand what constitutes compliance. So when I lost my wife, I thought, what do you mean? How can you deny me the right to pay for the care for my wife? So I took him to court, and we were in court for 8 years.
This is a particular insurance company now.
Okay. Insurance company. But I was wrong then because I sued the insurance company. They have a right to do what they did. Now, they lied like a rug, but that's another story.
Okay.
But I did not understand this system until years into it when I finally forced my right or got the ability to go into a library and sit down and read the contracts. And just to help everybody understand, I knew because of what I was doing in air compliance and down in Washington, that if I made enough phone calls, I'd find somebody that would let me read these. So I was allowed into the library and I was allowed to take all the notes I wanted, but I could not copy anything and I could not use anything directly. Now, what made it so easy is one, I know contracts. Two, they're all the same. I don't care whether you're looking at Pennsylvania or California or Florida. These are essentially, from a legal standpoint, identical contracts in terms and conditions. Once I understood those, then I had the basis to take the system apart. Because like coverage, if you're buying insurance, the first thing they're going to tell you is what's covered, right? But the first time they say it's not covered, they deny the very thing they said up front was coverage. They use coverage two different ways. It's what they claim they might cover when they don't say it that way. So when they actually deny coverage, well, that's not a covered benefit. Well, if you get caught in that loop and haven't read the contracts to separate the two totally different definitions, how do you confront that? How do you deal with it? But let me jump a little further out.
All right.
we can take this thing apart because these are smart people and they've been doing it for a long
Sure.
time. So,
And they've got lots and lots of lawyers.
There's lots of room to argue about the little pieces here and there and what they've done. But the fundamental point is that they want to ration our healthcare. And the only way they can do that is deny all payment when they deny coverage.
All right, we're gonna pause on that thought. We're gonna come right back to that after 1 minute. Everybody, we'll be back with Frank Lobb in just 1 minute.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
Have you ever dreamt of being on the radio? Well, now is your chance. Be a radio show guest on the #1 ranked internet radio station and promote you and your business for free. Yes, you heard it, free. Business advertising right here on W4CY.com. Call 561-506-4031 now to get booked on one of our shows. That's 561-506-4031. Get your free advertising now.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind, to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We're back with Frank Lobb, author of The Big Lie in My Healthcare Bill. And you just dropped the bomb. They want to ration care. I think I think many people know that conceptually, but I don't think they can prove that or even test it legally. At least from an individual patient's perspective. Dig in.
Yeah, well, this is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Let's have some fun with this. In the introduction, you mentioned that I had promised my wife not to write another healthcare bill.
Yeah.
Because I finally had the answer. And the answer is I no longer have to fight them. I only have to ask the right question. Because there's a thing called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act.
Mm-hmm.
And what that says is if I write a letter asking a couple of questions, reasonable questions about the bill, they have to answer the questions or they cannot enforce the bill. Well, the questions I would ask about the pricing and the cost and this and that are really simple. And they're in the book. There's letters in the book. I mean, really simple things to do. But they can't answer them because the contracts I'm talking about have a confidentiality provision that doesn't allow any of that information to be disclosed.
So who are you writing the letter to, the doctor or the insurance company?
Let's talk hospital.
Hospital. Okay. Right.
Okay. Because, I mean, let's not go to war with our doctors because we need a good doctor. That's our access point. If we shut that down, we have no access, period.
Yeah.
So the issue really is the big bill with the healthcare, the hospitals across the country. And that's where the money's spent. And only something like 7% of all the bills really are out of network. So what we're talking about are the in-network hospitals across the country that have the same contracts that I'm referring to as provider contracts or provider agreements.
Okay.
And they bar all payment. When the insurer says no to coverage, they're not allowed to take any money whatsoever. Matter of fact, I got to fumble for a minute, but
yep, take your time.
Shall the provider bill, charge, collect a deposit, seek compensation, remuneration, or reimbursement, or have any recourse against the covered person or persons? In other words, you can't bill, you can't take money, they can't do anything. That's what the providers have agreed to. But since you've never seen it, your listeners have never seen it, and there's another neat little, these are smart people. There's a thing that most people don't know about also. It's called a 30-day window. It's actually for collection, but it gets lost in who is a collection agency and who isn't. And the way it works is that 30 days after the issuing of a bill, if you haven't properly refuted it, contested it in writing to the right person, it's accurate in law for enforcement.
Is email considered in writing?
It's considered accurate and enforceable. So while you're making your phone calls to the insurance company, begging
right.
for more coverage, which they have no obligation to give you. The bill's ticking away on its 30-day window at the provider, and you're toast. Because at the end of the 30 days,
Yeah.
whether and when I say I want to be careful here, the bill was originally written for collection agencies, but it's very difficult to tell whether it's a collection agency or whether it's the provider and so forth. The point is, after 30 days, the clock has run out and you don't really have a right to contest it. Now, when I said earlier that I finally had my answer, the Financial Consumer Protection Bureau, which Trump has kind of decimated, but they publish studies and so forth, and something like 80% of the hospitals are in error. Hospital bills are in error.
I saw that. Unbelievable. Yeah.
We have a right to ask for a bill that we can understand. And let me just say it and keep it simple. They can't do it. So if we write a simple letter asking for a bill we can understand, they can't give it to us. And let me give you a simple example.
Yeah.
Now, this one actually was Medicare, but it's the same thing. And I had a small operation. I had to have it surgically, I have a tooth removed surgically. And I was actually in the operating room ready for them to start. And two people come in with a credit card machine and want $3,000 before they will proceed. And I have four policies. Anyway, I didn't win the argument, so I gave him a credit card. Got the operation, and I came out, and I immediately called my credit card company, disputed it, and I sent a letter to the state of Pennsylvania contesting the bill. I had the $3,000 back immediately. And they never once tried to defend the bill.
Wow.
Never. They sent me 2 invitations to come back for a follow-up procedure, and they sent me a birthday card. Now you tell me, if I had actually stiffed them and owed them $3,000, do you think they would have not come after me?
Not likely.
No, they have no legal standing. I simply had to ask.
Well, the practice of doing that in that dramatic moment in the OR anyway seems ridiculous.
Well, it is, but had I given them the $3,000 and not known what I know and how to contest it and what's in the book, I'd have lost $3,000. And the only reason I bring up that example, because it's personal, I know it well, but the fraud is so big and so real that if you ask the question and disclose it, that the system blows up. And I have a very good friend who is a former director of billing for one of the largest hospitals in the area. And I asked him about this, and he said, if I got a letter like that, I'd round trash it. I'd put it in the trash can and move on, which is what they do. So I'm not telling you that we can fix the system, but I am telling you, rather than read all the books that just, pardon my language, but bitch about the way it is, why not understand how they're playing the game, and then, per Einstein, play it better than they do and call them on their own game? In other words, I don't owe the money.
So do you feel they're being, I don't know if I should choose the words carefully or just say what I'm thinking. Do you feel like they're being dishonest in the design of their, quote, program?
I cover it in the book, and it's a very good question. I mean, are all these people crooks? No industry, and I work for a big industry, and there are ethics issues and so forth. But if you go back and look at how healthcare was developed, I equate it to being on a pond and you step out on thin ice. And every step you take, that's not so bad. And then you get so far out on the ice, you can't turn around. And so what I think, at least I would describe it, is they took step by step by step to where we are today. And now nobody knows how to turn around, because this is a $4.3 trillion market. That's with a T, trillion. Okay. And they're making money hands over fist.
Hard to turn that off.
They're not in trouble. They separate their money. They have the trust fund and the endowment funds and so forth, and then they do their operating costs. They're fine. And what we have is what's called in economics an inelastic market, where we've given the insurance companies monopolies.
Mm.
They own their territories. They can charge and do whatever they want because there is no competition. And, we get from Washington, well, what we need is competition. Are you kidding me? If you're talking about healthcare costs, how many people really shop hospitals when they need care? Not many. And even then, how would you know? There are 77,000 different billing codes.
Is that where most of the errors are?
Is that what?
Is that where most of the errors are? If it's an 80+% error rate on these bills, do you think it's mostly in the codes?
One could infer that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to do that because I know that they have no right to bill me in all kinds of areas to start with. So if I throw that in, the 80% sounds small. I had breakfast a number of years ago with a doctor and his wife. They were both doctors, large hospital down in Maryland. And I brought this issue up and they both broke out laughing. And what they said was that over 60% of the bills are created in the billing office, not in the hospital. So that's just hearsay. That's just people. Okay. But if you think about it, with 77,000 billing codes, they can't even agree on how to use them because you can combine them into a single code, or you could split them up and bill them separately. The hospitals prefer to split them up because they can bill more, and the insurance companies prefer to collect them and bill them as a single code under a number of codes because then they can pay less. So what the true number is, I don't know. But it feeds my book very well because what I said earlier was they really can't give you an understandable bill. And under law, they have an obligation to do that. And fortunately, there have been enough studies and enough work done by the Financial Consumer Protection Bureau that we can cite them and simply, in all due honesty, say, I want to get this bill paid. See, but you need to help me. Help me understand my bill. And they can't do it. And so what I would say to everybody here is, my dad taught me a long time ago, you have to be able to take care of yourself. And if you don't, you deserve what you get. I'm not, but it would serve everybody well if they simply read it and understood it. It's not a very long book. And at least understand the system as Einstein said. Then you can decide how you're going to play it. But I recommend you play it better than at least the hospital's playing it.
Well, I didn't read the book before the show. I did order it. It's on the way. Okay. So I will be reading it because I just think, I'm not a genius. Okay. I like to think I'm pretty smart, but I'm not a genius. I'm simply saying everybody knows what I'm about to say. Healthcare is broken, and the attempt to fix it made it worse, in my opinion. And if I were a doctor, I'd be frustrated. And many doctors, at least general practitioners, they're going into research, they're consolidating. Our doctor just left her practice for another one, and it's a big Massachusetts group, like the gold standard group, and now she's going to another one. So even they say it's messed up. They can't make sense of it. And we don't, what would you say to somebody that says, oh, you're just trying to game the system? And I don't believe this, but just the critics might say, you're just trying to game the system. You found a loophole to not pay for what you should be paying.
Well, wait a minute. I'm in a hardware business, and I have to adhere to my contracts, right?
For sure.
If I contract to pay for something, I got to pay it. There's nothing in my book that doesn't talk about the contracts that they have obligated themselves and to us to perform. Okay. All I'm saying in the book is don't stiff them. Just pay what's the contract demands. Okay.
Great point.
In our system, healthcare system, if you don't take care of yourself, you're going to get hurt because we are going to lose 20% of our doctors over the next, 10 years. 20%.
And it's hard enough now.
It already takes 3 weeks to see a doctor. What is the credo within a hospital emergency room when you go? It's treat them and street them. That's not my term. That's theirs. Do as little as you can and throw them out the door to go see their doctor. That's the system. Now, I'm not really here criticizing.
Right.
Go down that road, okay?
Right.
I'm just saying that as an individual, I've learned how to deal with the system they have.
All right, let's hold that thought. We're going to get one more commercial in. We'll be back in about 60 seconds with Frank Lobb.
You're listening to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan on W4CY Radio. That's W4CY.com. Don't go away. More helpful information is coming right up, right here on Winning Business Radio.
The YP.com website is your local search engine. If you're looking for a good restaurant, it can help you find the right one nearby with ratings and reviews. Or if your car breaks down, you can use the YP app to find the closest repair shop. Or maybe you're just looking for something to do on a Friday night. Well, it has great local coupons for all sorts of things in your area. No matter what, when, or where, if you're looking for something, YP Local Search can help you find it. So go to YP.com or download the app to search local, find local, and save local.
And now back to Winning Business Radio with Kevin Hallinan, presenting exciting topics and expert guests with one goal in mind: to help you succeed in business. Here once again is Kevin Hallinan.
We're back with Frank Lobb, author of The Big Lie on My Healthcare Bill. What do you want people to know, practically speaking? Like, for example, my question is, and you've answered a little bit of this, do I alienate my doctor? No, you said you shouldn't, and I agree. How about the hospital? Do I alienate the hospital? Do I need an attorney? Does this affect my credit score? Can you answer some of those questions?
Well, there's pretty much an agreement anymore that they can't even enter it in your record for non-payment. I think it's 180 days. Mm-hmm. And healthcare bills have become notorious for misreporting. So there's been a lot of work to stop it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to argue that if you follow my book, it won't ever get to 180 days.
Okay.
Look, I'm going to say it this way. I don't have to be right here. I'll invite anybody within the healthcare system to come in and tell me where I'm wrong. Now, I've talked to them. And every time I've gotten to the subject of, well, tell me where I'm wrong, they've left the room. And I'm not joking. My wife and I had dinner, and we happened to sit at a bar at a golf club. And there was a guy sitting next to me, and I had my book with me, and I had it laying on the bar. And we got into a discussion on the book, and he obviously was going to make fun of me. And he clearly was an attorney. Until he learned that I had read the contracts. Then he literally, and I do not joke, he literally left his dinner on the bar and left the room. That's real.
Wow.
These contracts are as secret as you can imagine. They've been declared by the states as proprietary documents, not to be released to the public. So all I'm saying is I've had the opportunity to read them. And since I have, I can share that with the public, and I'm doing that. And if I'm wrong, all the industry has to do is come tell me.
Well, the interesting nuance is, and I don't know if people caught this, the contract is not between the insurer and us. It's between the insurer and the provider.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So what's wrong is the insurer is not enforcing its contract. It's backing out of its obligation to provide coverage, knowing that it can pass the bill onto the provider to bounce onto you. And in 30 days, it's real. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect system. And if we want to subject ourselves to it, I guess that's anybody's choice. Or you can come tell me where I'm wrong. But if you read these contracts, it is clear. Well, I'll give you a quick example.
Yeah.
Every one of these contracts has a utilization review provision. So, okay, you get coverage and you get the operation. And 30 days later, this insurance company takes another look at it. They call it a utilization review and they go, oh, we made a mistake. We should not have covered this. They then have the right to pull the money back.
I've never had that happen, thank God.
Oh, it's happened plenty.
Didn't know it could.
I'll give you examples, and big money. But what the people and even the attorneys don't realize is that provision, yes, the insurer can pull the money back from the provider.
Wow.
But the provider is absolutely barred from billing the patient.
But they do.
Yes, because you and I don't know that we don't owe the money.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You don't see the contract. If you got insurance for anything else, you'd have a contract you could review and then hold the people accountable. You have no such contract. You have no ownership of what you have. The provider, the employer owes it, or if you buy it yourself, the insurer owns it. So you don't even have the right to sue because you have no ownership. They basically close it off. It's a great system from their side. Mm. Let's go to Einstein's world. Let's learn how they're doing it, and then simply ask a few questions and turn the system around in our favor. Because we're not going to get any more health care than our doctor says we need. And we're not going to have to pay any more or walk away from any bill that their contracts don't say we don't owe. Does that make sense?
It does.
That's kind of convoluted, but in other words, all I'm saying is, why should I pay a bill that their very own documents say I do not owe? And if there's anybody in this business community can tell me how to do that, I'm going to apply it here in my business because I can make money
hand over fist.
Right. You could include that in your consulting.
So how and why, not how, why did this become your mission? I mean, you could be doing other things, right?
You're really into who I am.
Yeah.
At 87, I have a right to look back on my life and have an idea who I am.
Totally.
I made a decision a long time ago to stand up for what's right. Mm. And I've hurt myself career-wise any number of times by saying, no, I'm not doing that. And this was so wrong that I had to find out how and why. I could be wrong, but it just seemed terribly, terribly unfair and against everything I knew in law. And once I had it, I'm really the only one with it. You find another book with it. So my only choice is either to share it or shut up and walk away. And, that's not right. That's not what my grandfather taught me. Mm. I get a little mushy, but, I still believe right's right. Ethics are.
So this may be an obvious question. Why don't you think more people are aware of this? How is it perpetuated?
It's completely counterintuitive. Mm. If I call it insurance, every other insurance I owe what isn't paid.
All right. So you did make the point this is not insurance.
Oh, no, it's not.
What would you say? What is it?
I have an attorney come in and tell me how it's insurance.
Yeah.
It's not. Okay. And it just doesn't meet the definition of insurance. As a matter of fact, originally it wasn't called insurance, but there's some tax benefits from being called an insurer. So let me put it around another way. Mm. In the state law, you have a right to call yourself pretty much what you want to call yourself. That doesn't mean you're really an insurance company. Mm. So I can label myself as insurance without meeting the needs of an insurance company. And these are smart people. And by the way, this is not a very simple solution or problem to solve.
Right.
I just believe if we're honest and we get in the room and we talk about the needs of both the country and the people, we can find an answer as long as we stay within the truth and not try to play games with it. And what's happened here is I can tell you very quickly, they started originally giving all the care you need for a very simple monthly payment. That was the model. And that was back in around 1929. Well, as healthcare became more expensive, they began looking for ways to cut costs, deny coverage. So the old model was all the care you needed for a small upfront payment. They were never able to change it. They were never able to pull it back from the marketplace. So they've kept all the care that you need. Look at the TV commercials. Well, you get it all, except when you need it. And then little by little, they look for clever ways to deny coverage, but carry it back to actual care. And let me say it this way. If I had been successful up front when my wife was ill and had been allowed to pay, I could have taken them into court and they'd have lost, because it was definitely necessary health care, promised necessary health care. They have no right to deny it. And a jury would have given me the verdict. They know that. They can't afford to have this go into court.
So why is there not, and maybe there is, and we just haven't talked about it yet, why is there no pushback?
Nobody knows to push back.
Like, you're dealing with companies, you're bringing awareness through this show and others. You're telling me, you're telling, thousands of people listening and watching. At some point, it's a groundswell, and you haven't experienced any pushback yet.
I'm going to say it this way. I think if we try to fix the system, we're just we're wasting our time. I'm focused on helping you and your listeners individually fix it themselves.
Right.
Because the laws are still there. The doctor still works for me. I don't care who pays him. The law says he's mine. Okay. And I've never found a doctor yet that when I reminded him of that, he didn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
And when I remind them that of the payment in the system and I don't know what the insurer fails to pay, they know and appreciate it, because that's the system they're working in. Okay. So they don't like this system any better than we do.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I've had conversations with doctors and nurses and providers, and they don't like the system.
No. And by and large, they're not directly tied to the payment. They're working for a much larger company and have nothing to do with the billing. They're just giving you their 15 minutes of time and on to the next. And to show you how disconnected they are, doctors used to aim for something like 800 patients. They're now being asked to service 3,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. I'm an engineer, and I was supposed to.
Yeah, that math doesn't really work.
If you give me 3,000 projects, then I'm going to leave.
Yeah. Well, and that's happening.
Oh, yeah. It's happened. And that's when the doctor comes in and knows you know better than what's on his flat screen on his laptop. But there's no way he could know 3,000 patients and know you individually and what's really, one last quick comment here.
Yeah.
We're talking about AI. Think of AI. How do you know who made the decision if you're using AI? I now know that if my doctor makes a decision of what I need, it's him. I can look to him. He's responsible. Just like an engineer, if I build a bridge and put my name on the drawings. If AI makes the decision, who do we look to for the decision?
Great point. Let's hope it doesn't come to that.
It's huge. I mean, you can't say, well, the software did it. Somebody, at least in our system of law, has to be responsible for putting their name on the document. And computer. And by the way, there was a period of my time when I designed computer systems. But anyway, it's once systems get that complicated, you cannot understand. The mind cannot understand how we got here. So anybody that would sign for the decision made on AI under an AI system, they'd be out of their mind, because they'd have no idea how we really got there.
Yeah.
So by and large, you asked me back, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I have the information. I'm just not somebody to bury it. I've done my best to share it. I really do mean I'm not writing another book. I've had it. Fortunately, the Consumer Protection Bureau and the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act and the studies that have been shown to where hospital bills are so much in error, and there's a real issue about bankruptcy across the nation with healthcare.
And, well, you said it earlier, but I've heard it elsewhere
It
that
just
medical bills are the number one cause.
exactly.
Mm.
And I'm just hoping that the information I have in the book is significant enough to help the individual deal with this really very, very large problem. Because trying to solve the overall problem is, it's just too big a ship to move.
Yeah. As much as they tried a number of years ago,
Yes.
Obama administration. And
Well,
even if we said they had the right intentions,
well, but
I think they made it worse.
Obama had the same problem you and I are just discussing.
Yeah.
Obama is not insurance. Obamacare is simply the requirement that you buy insurance.
Yeah, the marketplace
And they
the
did
requirement.
change
Yeah.
policies. In other words, he fell back instead of trying to go for Medicare or whatever, a government model. He simply adopted a model where you buy private insurance off the marketplace or get it from your employer. Well, they ignored the problem that we're discussing, or that it's in my book. And I don't think, I would bet heavy money he didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
People who have signed, for the legislation and so forth,
Yeah.
I'll bet you heavy money they do not know the way that care is being denied. There's the actual linchpin in the system. And the linchpin is that they've been able to deny all payment, which, by the way, I could, if you had more time, I'd tell you, I'd give you great proof how it's not only unconstitutional, but the states have gone way out of their way to try to hide it.
Wow.
They cannot deny us the right to pay for our own health care. And so the issue is so big, and they've done it, that if you raise it in a simple little letter under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they have no place to go. I'm going to say it this way: the emperor has no clothes.
Well, I bought the book, $20 delivered from Amazon. Is that the best place to find it?
Well, if you go to either killabill.com, it has a QR code, it'll take you there, or you can go to Amazon and ask for it under my name, or the Killabill. Under the big line, my healthcare bill. But the name of the book, or killabill.com, the website, that both will take you there. And by the way, if somebody comes up with an explanation where I'm wrong, I welcome it.
Challenge is put out there. The gauntlet's been dropped.
Yeah.
So 2 questions. Who in the listening and viewing audiences may want to reach out to you, and why? Number one.
Who you say that again?
Who watching or listening may want to reach out to you, and why?
I think it's the individual.
Yeah.
Because I originally thought professionals would want to do it, and they are so tied into the system.
Yeah.
Financially and whatever, they don't want to touch it. I mean, I really thought, I was an engineer, I would have read it simply out of intellectual curiosity within my own profession. Okay. I don't find that to be the case. The people who are closest to it don't want to touch this with a 10-foot pole.
Well, there's no good answer to your point of the system, right? No good answer there. So to your point, again, goes to the individual to take care of themselves.
Short of really retooling the whole thing, rewriting it, restructuring it, there can be no sense. But there can be a solution for the individual. And eventually, like most things in the United States, money brings solutions.
Yeah, it does.
And if enough of us put our hand up and ask a couple of questions, they'll have to address it, and we'll sit down, probably come up with a solution.
Well, that's why I want to get this word out. I know it's grassroots. I know it's a long slog, but getting this message out is important. It also speaks to your entrepreneurial nature. By the way, thank you for serving for more than 20 years, 22 years in the Navy. Appreciate that. His name is Frank Lobb. The website is killabill.com. You can reach him there, and you can also reach him at his phone, 267-446-3826. Frank, we're out of time. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
I do too. I really appreciated this and enjoyed the discussion. Seriously.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for watching and listening. This is a show about business and business challenges. This one happens to be personal. If you have concerns, though, about the sales effectiveness of your company, whether your sales team is you or very small or it's very large, feel free to reach out to me on Facebook or LinkedIn at Winning Business Radio. Drop me a note if you want. One of my many email addresses is Kevin at winningbusinessradio.com. Our company is Winning Incorporated. We are part of Sandler Training. We develop sales teams into high achievers and sales leaders into true coaches and mentors. Hey, we're not right for everybody, but maybe we should have a conversation. Thank you, as always, to Juan, producer and engineer extreme, for another job well done. Be sure to join us next week. That's Monday, April 21st. My guest would be longtime friend and author John Cady. He's authored several books, including the new young adult urban fantasy novel series, Angela of Death. Until then, this is Kevin Hallinan.
You've been listening to Winning Business Radio with your host, Kevin Hallinan. If you missed any part of this episode, the podcast is available on Talk4 Podcasting and iHeartRadio. For more information and questions, go to winningbusinessradio.com or check us out on social media. Tune in again next week and every Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time to listen live to Winning Business Radio on W4CY Radio, W4CY.com. Until then, let's succeed where others have failed and win in business with Kevin Hallinan and Winning Business Radio.